How's it going, everybody? Really excited to be here. Today, as I was introduced, I'm going to be talking a bit about sort of a mishmash of a different set of industries, I guess. You've got a bit of gaming kind of sprinkled in here. You got a bit of advertising, and you got a bit of mobile in general, and kind of how monetization is progressing. Kind of all into this theme of sort of the humanization of advertising and really media in general, where over time what we've seen, unfortunately, is this really sort of robotic transition of advertising from what were the glory days of the Green Giant and Tony the Tiger, I don't really know if those are glory days, to let's show impressions and make billions of dollars off of just people seeing text. And it's kind of unfortunate that that's happened, but I wanted to share at least sort of 10 quick tidbits today of how we've learned through the building of Keep what really is sticking right now in the industry, and obviously what's next. But first, I wanted to sort of share a bit about myself. So why is there this 12-year-old Asian kid on stage talking about advertising and shit? You've got this, which is, I'm going to give you a few tidbits, which are kind of pieces of my background, which hopefully will help make everything make sense. So for those of you, most of you should know what this is. If you don't, you should leave. This is Counter-Strike Source. I was a massive Counter-Strike Source whore when I was in college, which I only went to for a year. I was an op whore, so I was actually really good at moving around my mouse and being really accurate within pixels of basically killing people, because if you didn't, you would be killed because you had to be very quick with a sniper rifle. And that actually led me to being a great designer. So here you have lens flare as a filter, which is the most noob filter you would use in Photoshop for those of you in the room who are designers. And I'm using this to represent sort of my design background. So I started to learn how to design with Photoshop when I was 11 years old. I started to sort of put together bits and pieces of learning how to make abstract art to SIGs and forums, and then eventually decided that I would make some websites. And that naturally transitioned, of course, to, for some reason, starting a company, which somehow seems to be the path for a lot of web entrepreneurs. But design is definitely my background. This was a part of the reason why I was so excited about just learning about marketing and advertising in general. So when I went to college, I went to college when I was 14. I graduated early. I skipped 4 grades in high school and elementary school. I ended up at Dig after I graduated college in 2010. So just so you guys know, I was not the reason why they failed. Just going to set the record straight. But I was at Dig for a very brief period of time in 2010 in business development. So my job was to mainly work with publishers, news publishers, to get the Dig buttons into as many places as possible. And this was actually the beer fridge at Dig, and I wasn't legal when I was working there, so the beer drinking culture didn't really mash too well with my age, but I figured out ways to get around. All right. So I ended up getting laid off from Dig because I sucked at my job. I'm kidding. And I ended up starting a company instead of moping around and doing nothing with my life. I mean, for a while I was pretty depressed. I mean, when you're 19 and you're a sheltered Asian child and you get laid off from your first full-time job, it's pretty bad. And also being Canadian, too. So I'm Canadian, so I'm technically family, right? We're all in the Commonwealth, same queen, everything. Anyways, as related as I could be to you, we love castles, is Keep. So I noticed this thing that practically everybody in this room has probably noticed already by now, which is everybody is playing games on their phones around them, whether it be on the tube or the bus or the cab or in a line or whatever. Obviously, Natural Motion has capitalized on this immensely, and we figured that there was actually another problem that needed to really be solved in mobile, which was this. So this is advertising in mobile right now, right? The most commonly used, which is banner advertising, and you get kicked out, and you just shit flies in your face, and you're like, this is fucking annoying, right? And this is how advertising has manifested itself on the phone. And it's silly. And there's a lot of people who are going, oh, how do we go beyond the banner? Like, what's next? What's the next answer? Well, no one really seems to have the answer right now, because they're all trying to take legacy businesses and port them over to this new device. People have simply been looking at the smartphone as a smaller screen and nothing more. And I'm preaching to the choir. I think you guys all know this. But the reason behind all this, though, just to give you a bit of insight, is in the advertising industry, which I had zero knowledge about, by the way, when I first started the company. I still probably know very little, but I've hopefully become less naive about it after going up and down Madison Avenue and getting my ass kicked in pitches, is that there's this obsession with tonnage. and this obsession with behavior change. So what happens now is people are all like they want to buy billions of impressions, and hopefully through reach and frequency, which are these terms they love using, and these things called GRPs, gross rating points, which is a very old metric around advertising on TV and how they're actually measuring exposure from that and now porting it over to even mobile, is they just want to show shit a lot. And hopefully you'll know and care about their brand and buy something, right? And then the other thing they love doing through direct response, which is the other half of advertising, is to go ahead and make you do something. So, ooh, that's my email notification. That's going to be annoying. But I muted it. Is to actually make you do something new. So go like a Facebook page, or go watch a video, or go fill out a form, or just do something new. I don't care about the thing you're doing right now. Let me just make you do something new, right? And that's just so off. And I've been preaching this for the last 2 years since we started the company. And I always like to just challenge that assumption and saying, when you look at phones, you have to remember that there are billions of people that are already doing things on their phone. They're already engaged in behavior. How do we tap into that existing behavior? So what we noticed was the existing behavior in the form of achievement moments. So game developers are really good at this. You guys all know what this is. It's like, yeah, 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 yeah. It's like, yeah, it's all the yeahs. And I was like, how do I take these yeah moments, right? And how do we do something with them that isn't taking a giant shit on it, right? And because a lot of companies will just say, okay, well, you're in that moment. Perfect time to show you a video, right? We're like, no, actually, let's not do that. Let's actually reward you with big brands. And this is actually what we ended up coming with. So in the moment of achievement, Keep is basically allowing you to hit these happiness moments and give you the choice to be rewarded. We don't bombard you. This actually doesn't come in right away. You have to be able to select something if you want to, but it'll go away. We call it moments-based rewards, and it's leveraging, again, this E moment in a respectful way is how we decided to build it out. And so these things could be physical. These things could be like things you could get at a or I don't know, Tesco or whatever. And you could, we have actually a campaign we launched live just in the UK this week with Yo Sushi. So for those of you huge fans of Yo Sushi, we're actually giving away free dishes. And it was actually really smart because you won't be a dick move and go into a Yo Sushi and redeem for one free dish and just leave, right? So we actually have this offer right now that's running, and we're really excited about it. And it happened just this week. So how have we done so far? We've been growing a lot. Overall, on the network, we have about 500 apps that are integrated with us now. And there's about 40 million people in the US alone just sort of rolling through every month. About 100 million of these moments of like the 100 million times, let's imagine that, in the US. And then about 100 million rewards that we've served so far now since our inception. So I think over the last 2 years, we've seen a lot of data around redemption habits and around what people are doing in these moments in particular. And I'm happy to share with you what has actually worked. But before I do that, I'm actually going to show you a quick video of how we've kind of evolved today and why I actually mentioned apps instead of just games is what we've been integrated to. And I'll just show you right now. To have rewards be a part of your everyday life was something that we really truly wanted to do since the beginning here at Keep.
You like to feel appreciated with Keep, and the Keep reward, you get that feeling back. You get rewarded for being good at what you do.
Keep allowed us to create a stream of revenue that's based entirely on rewarding the players. These achievement moments, or these moments that are already rewarding, and it's ratcheted that up.
Now we've introduced something that allows you to explore other apps and games that you can earn rewards in, and to be able to store these rewards into one centralized place.
Tracking your rewards with Keep's new app is awesome. You're going to love it, and it takes them to the next level.
These everyday victories, these moments, they're everywhere. We wanted to reward everyday life, and the Keep app enables us to do just that. Oh, jeez, I didn't work out. Yeah. All right, so that was the cheesiest moment of that video. But we wanted to just show now how things have evolved with rewards in general in these moments. And it's now become just not just gaming itself, but practically anything that you're engaging with on your phone. And so the concept of almost this distributed presence where you are able to encounter reward in anything you do was something that we were super excited about. And now we're rolling out steady but surely with the level of focus that we have right now. So back to the topic at hand, this sort of humanization of technology. We've seen this a lot with just the business sort of discourse out there around sort of, you've probably recognized these books at some point or another, Enchantment with Guy Kawasaki, Delivering Happiness with Tony Hsieh, and The Thank You Economy with Gary Vaynerchuk. A lot of these books come across as being very fluffy and bullshitty to a lot of people, but frankly, they actually have a great point they're trying to make, which is there's this sort of non-commoditization around business principles that are going beyond what we've just seen in just the technology that we've created, right? So there's things that everybody has access to, but then there's things that's not, the things that are emotional in nature and are subjective that you can't really reproduce. But it all comes down to finding that human. Like, where in your game or your app or your service or your business do you have that human interaction, and how do you highlight that? And this comes in the form of these 10 steps. So number one is finding existing patterns of behavior. So this is a very simple one to explain just by looking at the background image here of McDonald's. So it's at night. And the reason why I put this up there is because McDonald's is really great at doing this. They always leave their McDonald's nearby party districts open till about 4 or 5 a.m. or even 24 hours a day, because guess what you do when you're super drunk after you're going out at night? You go to McDonald's because you're super hungry and you want greasy stuff to shove your face with. And so they're just, again, basic business principles about taking existing patterns of behavior for human beings and what we do and really highlighting and figuring out ways to accommodate it. And not trying to make things happen in a different way, which, again, advertising has been so obsessed with for the longest time, but tapping into these rivers of behavior that already exist. So obviously on the phone, you have the achievement moment, and then you also have this very interesting dynamic that we've observed now that even extends to the physical realm around fitness and health. So this, as you may recognize, is the Nike Fuel Band. And the Fuel Band is something that I don't think is available in the UK yet, right? It's not available here? No? Not yet? Is it? Yeah. Yes, it is? It is? Okay, good. Perfect. You can buy this thing that you can put on your wrist and run around and earn fuel. And it'll allow you to hit this goal if you set it for yourself. And it's a way to basically take what is your already existing behavior during your everyday life, which is walking around, going to lunch, sitting at your desk like a big sloth. There's all sorts of existing behavior patterns that they just said, hey, if I were able to help you measure in a fun and interactive and delightful way, maybe there's a way to make this even more fun. And so they haven't really figured out a way actually to convert these fuel points into anything tangible yet, but hint, 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 Nike people. Another app that we found was fascinating that a lot of the press has completely ignored for some reason, or I guess forgotten because it happened so long ago, is the acquisition that Facebook made of an app called Karma. And so Karma, as some of you may have used in some point or another, they didn't have gifts here in the UK, but in the US, Karma is a gifting app. It takes people who want to basically send you physical gifts and are super lazy and don't want to go to the store and gift wrap them and actually send them to you, to use an app to do it instead. And it made it super convenient and seamless, but again, it was tapping into what was already an existing pattern of behavior, which is gifting through things like birthdays, anniversaries, any type of celebration or congratulations, right? By making it super seamless to tap into something that people are already doing, you now have something that's basically a home run, right? And so they obviously did extremely well, and Facebook decided, hey, let's tap into these guys and see what happens. But sort of segueing from taking existing patterns of behavior, you'll notice that the moment of achievement is something that people are already attuned to achieving and wanting to see. And they love it, and they're part of it, and they feel it. And we realize that for the advertisers in general, there's really been no insight into looking at how technology helps them unlock these things. And so we've kind of been the first to go to them and say, okay, look at mobile and try to find these moments that it is actually relevant to your brand. So the thing in the video you saw with Propel and fitness made perfect sense because they want to be there when you're thirsty. And when you're finished a run, it just makes sense. Now here, I usually refer to the most cliche example of all companies to sort of illustrate this, which is Apple. So you have this sort of this moment that they love showing. Arguably less so much now that Steve Jobs has passed. But previously, they were really good at identifying moments in which you could use these devices and feel super baller and hipster. And you have this example, for example, it's kind of blurry. I kind of screen captured it from a video, which was about iPad's first year and how it's kind of adapted or how people have adapted it to what they're doing. And you see the Eiffel Tower in the background. You see two, boy and a girl probably a couple kind of, scrolling around, probably checking out maps with a 3G iPad. They're going to be raped with roaming charges. This is not a realistic example. But it's a moment, and they showed it, and it makes you feel so happy to see that. And you're like, oh, I would love to look like that when I'm in front of the Eiffel Tower and not actually look at it. So in many ways, of course, we saw this achievement moment. Sorry for showing the Arsenal player in the back, but this is the moment, and this is why we found it so exciting. And of course, you guys all know what this is, and if you don't, you should leave the room as well. So number 3 is engage meaningfully. So in the background, you have a marathon. And when we talk to brands a lot, we realize that they don't really get how to build experiences anymore because it's so easy to just pour a lot of money into advertising exchanges. Of course, I'm generalizing, but what you see here in the background is, again, a great example of what companies like Nike have done in really tapping into their core competency. So Nike is actually kind of going through a little bit of an existential crisis right now, or more of like an identity crisis as well, where they're like, well, I'm actually not just a digital media, not just I gave away, a sports related business, I'm a digital media business. And what Nike's actually done with FieldBand and everything has kind of helped you create this entire experience. Now, what they actually do well, too, is they create these marathon events around the world. And I think you hopefully have somehow participated in one of these at some point or another. But what they do is they create an entire experience around you using their products, but it's natural anyways because people like running marathons because you like to get fit. But what we see is sort of the corollary in our business is this thing where when you're running a marathon and you have this natural hydration break, there's usually like Powerade or Gatorade to give you a free bottle just to help you hydrate. That's basically what we're doing here with the moment, in that people were running the marathon anyway. They're already going to take a break to hydrate. Here's a bottle to help you do better. So it's kind of, that's the physical example, and that's how brands have figured out in the past how to be a part of experiences. So they can do this. There is hope, but you need to understand how to do that on digital devices, and mobile being the best opportunity to do so. And of course, through surprise and delight, this is a really key point here. I try to make this sort of really easy to explain by sort of, your boyfriend or girlfriend or wife or husband, every time they give you a surprise gift, it's a lot more exciting than if it's an expected thing, right? So what we realized is, looking at the pattern of rewarding, what happens is you have this massive moral hazard of telling people what they can do to get this. So if we had said, hey, hit level 10 and then get this, or run 3.5 miles in 10 minutes, which is impossible for most people, and get this reward, people will just go crazy and just do that. And then the object of the task now is to get the reward, not to have that intrinsic motivation to do the thing that you wanted to do in the first place. So we made our rewards serendipitous. You don't know when you're going to get them. You just do what you're normally doing, and then shit happens, right? It's awesome. Not shit, but like great shit, right? Like golden shit. So number 4 is identify emotional highs. And this is about, again, looking at sort of this, if you look at this sort of like, heart rate monitor thing of people, and sort of just understanding where it is that people are naturally at this peak of emotional highs, and lows even too, so I should say lows. Because we ran a campaign with vitamin water, where we take people who would lose like 10 times in a row, and you'd get, here's a free bottle of attention flavored vitamin water because you need to pay more attention, right? So there's a lot of interesting angles here when you look at both the highs and the lows. But again, tapping into that natural path makes sense. Here's an example of where this has manifested itself, not just in games, but in applications in general. Now, you've noticed this explosion of photo applications. There's actually one major reason why that's the case. Through all of the technology we've created as a human race, the best thing that's been able to sort of embody these emotions visually is a photo. And so through photo apps now, because of the ease of capture, you've seen this explosion. And you've also had this ability now to reciprocate and sort of do little thingies to help make people feel like their photo is actually interesting. And so Path did this thing where they actually automatically make it look like people looked at your photo, even though they may have scrolled past it, and it wasn't actually them paying attention. But these little things, right, these little sort of ways to make you feel this like little jolt of sort of emotional cocaine is immensely genius, because we now have this effect where people just feel like everybody thinks that they're awesome. And maybe you are, maybe you aren't, it doesn't matter. The service wants you to feel that way. And through gaming, which is basically a science and basically taking emotional cocaine and giving it to you every time they want you to spend money, you also have this ability now through photo apps, which for some reason aren't making you spend any money because they don't have business models. But number 5 is keep it simple. So this is obviously another cliche example of Apple and how they simplified the remote for TV. But what I mean by this is there's usually this either angle of making it complicated on purpose or keeping it simple just because you know that the user base you are targeting wants it to stay simple. So a perfect example of this, as you guys know, is this 1-degree conversion from cash to credits. For some reason, and this is something that's been tested a lot, and by the way, is what casinos employ every day through chips, is for some reason, if there's 1 degree of conversion away from real cash, we don't give a shit about spending it. It just seems really just whatever. And this happens in games because you buy credits, and it's genius because you could throw people off by going, $1 gives you 321 points. And then people's lack of math skills just enables them not to pay attention to how much money they're losing. But you have this conversion layer that actually makes it easier for them to spend money. So that's your goal, awesome. But what we had realized at Keep was that the goal is to actually have people redeem, because that's how we make money. And so one of the things we did, of course, when you saw in the reward unit was made it super easy for people just through email addresses and not needing anything else. No need to pre-register. We chose email because people were playing on their iPads and their iTouches and Wi-Fi-enabled devices, not necessarily cellular-enabled devices. So doing SMS was not the best play in the beginning, but now we've actually started to incorporate it. But we actually, and you saw in the video, we launched this wallet thing, which allows people to essentially store the rewards automatically without even needing to use that email address. And so we made this sort of a flow that came naturally from what users were asking for. Because now that we've been around for more than a year as a live network, what happened in the beginning was, okay, people got a few rewards here and there, about 5 or 6 or maybe a dozen, but these were all scattered in their email. And now people have redeemed stuff like hundreds of rewards, and they're like, well, I want a wallet to have it in one place. And so it's funny how as the company gets older, and we emerge out of this tweener phase, you now have this need to do things to accommodate the user behavior that has naturally occurred from just seeing your product evolve. So number 6 is create a 2-way connection times 2, so 4-way. But what I mean by this actually is there's a lot of hoopla about social media and the fact that you could communicate with a brand, which is fucking awesome. I'm so happy for you that you can tweet at a brand and they'll send you some like thanks, or like Heathrow Airport actually tweeted at me when I landed. I was like, oh my god, the airport can talk. But it was a lot of fun to see the airport talking to me. Is the actual other side of it, which is not only is it cool to have a brand talk to someone, but it's actually even cooler for someone to actually want to have a reason to share that talking with other people. That makes them. I'll show you an example. So what we actually did with Keep and our rewards was we gave the ability for people to gift the reward. So essentially a pay it forward, where you could essentially send a reward that you didn't want or maybe you didn't think was relevant in the current state to anybody that you knew. And what this actually did was open up an entirely new world of folks that actually never really interacted with the game in the first place, but now has this sort of goodwill thing that was sent to them from a friend. And this was a gimmick that we created in the beginning just because we said, okay, well, if we don't have a really great targeting engine because we didn't in the beginning, but now we do, let's just make it so that humans can retarget themselves. And it just turned out to be something that became so successful that we've now kept it in all of our reward units. Number 7 is choice. So choice is, this is the famous photo of just the litany of products you see in grocery stores today. As you guys know, there's this paralysis of choice thing. If there's too many options, sometimes people just freeze up and can't really make a decision. That's usually what happens. But what I mean by choice, and this is one of my favorites, is perceived choice. So not actual choice, but the notion of feeling like you actually have choice, right? And that's what you need to do. So not like actually give people choice, because that's just silly. Make them feel like they actually have choice. And this is through these things here, and I'm kind of just going to pinpoint a few. One is sort of like, you don't have the service here, but it's called Shoe Dazzle. It's essentially this ability in the US to sign up to the subscription shoe service, where if you're a girl, every month, they don't do dudes right now, but if you're a girl, you get basically a pair of shoes shipped to you every month based on your preferences and what you kind of feel like and seasonalities and stuff. And when you first sign up, they'll ask you questions like, ooh, do you like to eat donuts? Do you like to hike a lot? Do you like to exercise? Do you like walking in the park? Do you like to eat Jell-O? Random questions. But it makes you feel that they're actually asking you these things that may or may not be a part of their decision of sending you a customized shoe. And out of those like 40 questions, there are probably only 4 that they use to actually give you that shoe. But it makes you feel like they actually care and they're paying all this attention to all this detail. And it's great, right? But that's a way to fake you feel like there's this sort of this paying attention, there's this choice, there's this care. The perceived care is also something you see manifest a lot in flight search engines. Skyscanner is here. I think they do this too. Kayak does this. Pretty much everybody does this, which is you have to wait for your results to come, especially for flight searches. And the main reason why, well, with the tubes today, it shouldn't take that long. It should happen basically instantly, and it can. But flight search engines purposely make you wait because they want you to feel like that they had spent time to find you the best results. And this is actually the real life, that's the digital example of what you see sometimes in retail stores. So let's say you're in H&M and you're going and you're trying to find a size on the rack and you find a lady, you're like, hey, there's no extra small, which is my size. Why is there no small? She'll be like, okay, fine, let me go find it for you in the back. Let's say she came out after like 5 seconds. You'd be like, there's no fucking way you checked. So I don't really think you paid attention to me and I feel offended. But if she, let's say, went back and just doodled her thumb for like 3 minutes and came back and you're like, oh wow, she actually tried to find it for me. So that's essentially what's happening in these flight search engines. And it's really interesting because it's this perception of choice, this perception of care that really makes you feel special and really nothing else. And this is something that a lot of brands are really catching on to. And I hope it makes sort of a better experience just on a human level, connecting with you, making you feel that these brands actually care. Number 8 is serendipity. So in the background, you should know this. If you don't, you should leave the room. It is the Google Glass project, where you have basically these really dorky-looking wearable computing devices that even doesn't look good on that girl for some reason. It's just it's like, come on, guys, make it look better. But it's why I mention it under the theme of serendipity. Actually, is what it's going to enable through humanizing more experiences with brands. Actually, through this notion of sort of happening upon the sixth sense of more information about what's around you. So this utility, and you guys have seen this perhaps more realistically in an example that you can actually download today, which is Highlight. As much as people bitch and moan about Highlight all the time, they've actually just started or just sort of got the tip of the iceberg on this notion of serendipity and knowledge, giving you this ability to almost delightfully learn more about something around you. And that makes things human-like because we kind of run a lot in many ways in life, depending on how risk-loving or risk-averse you are, on serendipity, on fun things that happen. You go out at night because the night, who knows where it'll take you. And you've got this notion of devices now accommodating sort of the serendipitous exploration of things around you, which again is just a more natural human way to interact. And hopefully soon advertising will come in the form of something that doesn't annoy the shit out of you, but actually adds that utility in rewards through what you end up doing through your life. And so, we've been thinking about this a lot at Keep, and through the app and through what you saw in that video, there's a lot of challenges ahead of us. And mind you, we know how difficult it'll be to try to be a part of just anything without annoying people. So we've been very careful in how we can figure out how to really do this. But I think with Google Glass and with Highlight and how developers are going to end up using these devices, you'll have something really, really interesting on your hands. Almost done here. Number 9 is build a story. So the gifting example I told you about before, in the background here you actually have a word cloud of the words that were used frequently in the messaging part of it. So people could send messages along with that gift, and as you can see, love was the biggest one. And it was just very sort of touching for us to see this because for the first time, as a network, you really are very data-centric. It's very, again, sort of this sort of nerdy, robotic thing. And once you start seeing these human moments, these people actually getting what the reward or the gift really is and having some kind of a message associated with it, you end up feeling like there's a great story behind it. And so a lot of what we were able to do with brands was sort of share, hey, listen, people actually understand this. They're actually in these moments. They're actually happy. This is a story. This is why it makes sense around gifting and rewarding in general and how you can feel that same impact. So last but not least, Inception, like the movie, is this thing about telling people about why you're doing what you're doing, right? So brands are very shitty at doing this most of the time. They don't actually tell you why. It's all about the what. It's all about the features. It's all about these things that have nothing to do with this purpose or this sense of existing in the first place. And so I think what's interesting around the brands that have succeeded really well in explaining the why of their existence is that they're able to help you almost ride with them in this mission that they have. And so when you're associating yourself with a larger purpose, in many ways it's kind of gamification, that you have this notion of not being attached to a finite limit anymore. It's to this thing that's really esoteric and sort of this thing about, we want to make all advertising rewarding. You have other companies that are trying to make gaming natural, motion. I don't know what your purpose is, but we'll figure it out. Or horses and cars. It's weird. But you'll figure this out with brands that, again, have done this really well. And this why just speaks to people a lot more. It taps into a more emotional connection and allows you to rally with it. And it's in many ways sometimes more humanizing, because you actually forgive brands for faults that for brands specifically you love, right? So this is specifically exemplified by the differences in how people respond to Microsoft and Apple whenever they make any fuck up. When Apple totally royally fucks up, everybody goes, oh, that's fine, they maybe had a bad day, or well, it's all good. But when Microsoft fucks up, it's like, oh, it's like pitches and forks, right? And you're like, this is crazy. And you see this difference in how brands are being sort of evolved in how consumers see. And how their emotional connections have sort of manifested from the why. And so, of course, to close out, we really feel that your brand has to feel, your company has to feel, it has to understand these natural emotional rhythms of the people that are in your market. Because at the end of the day, the person that's using this thing is a human being, not a machine. So if you feel, you will survive. If you don't, you'll die. Thank you very much.